What's going on, family? Welcome back to Israel's Movie Reviews. And today we're going to be discussing one of my all-time favorite films, and that's Scarface, back from 1983, starring none other than Al Pacino. And man, we're going to get straight into this. This is a classic gangster film. And this film, I remember, being young. Obviously, I didn't see this in a theater. I wasn't even born yet. But my father had posters that I got him eventually. I have, to this day, I have the action figure. Al Pacino playing this role basically represented a lot of what I saw as a child growing up. This movie, I don't believe it glorified drug dealers or anything like that, but it did glorify a man, a human man, basically trying to get all he could. And it had, obviously, unfortunately, had to do in the drug game, but it showed you, it gave you that ambition, it gave you that drive, wanted to do more. Although, like I said, it did come in negative light, but, for us, he was kind of an anti-hero in a way, you understand? And he showed us many things. He showed us what to do, what not to do, how to dress, how not to be like. It was up and down with this character, man. This character will go down as one of the best characters ever on screen. And, kudos to Al Pacino, one of the best actors in the world. He took this role by the horns and really knocked it out the park. We can't say enough about Al Pacino and all the roles that he's played, from Serpico to the Godfather franchise, Carlito's Way. It's incredible. It's incredible. His career spans decades, and God bless him. And you know what? Let's just get straight into this, man. Scarface is a crime film that features and tells the story of a Cuban refugee played by Tony Montana, and AKA Al Pacino, because that's what I'm gonna call him, Tony Montana, who comes to Miami to become a big drug cartel kingpin during the cocaine boom of the said era and decade. Al Pacino stars as, Tony Montana together with Bauer, plays his best friend, Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert Loggia, and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. And Oliver Stone wrote the screenplay, and Brian De Palma directed this movie, which was an update from the 1932 classic of the same title, and it was written by Ben Hecht and directed by Howard Hawks. And these two films were totally different. Especially the product in which they chose. The original film, they chose booze, liquor, right? And this one, it's cocaine. Very big difference. Brian De Palma, he hits it out the park. His direction in this film was second to none. The pairing with Oliver Stone was just, that's what made this movie such a masterpiece. Even setting aside the acting was incredible. The supporting actresses and actors, incredible. But when you just pick apart the film, you have something dynamic. And the writing, the direction, the cinematography, the way everything is laid out, every scene is like a commercial. Man, they don't make movies like this anymore. They really don't. Tony Comante, from the original, the Italian-American Chicago gangster in the 1932 classic, was remade in this one and is now obviously called Tony Montana. He's a small-time Cuban punk, one of the supposedly hundreds among 100,000s or so legitimate refugees that the Castro government allowed to immigrate to Florida in the spring of 1980. And quickly, he shows that he's quick-witted, hollow-eyed, has one redeeming feature, but his greed and ambition are so consuming that they're kind of heroic in size, if not in quality. He has absolutely no compunction about murdering for profit, which is deadly, which proves to be deadly, which quickly endears him to a Batista Cuban refugee who's the chief of the Bolivia to Florida cocaine trafficking system, Later works his way up and succeeds his former mentor, who actually tries to kill him. He too marries the man's mistress, Elvira, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who was phenomenal in the time that she had in this film. She was a delight to see because up to that point we didn't see her in any basically films like that. They believed this was her first role, and she knocked it out the park. Man, did she? This is one of the best gangster films to me ever made, in my humble opinion. It's cool, it's violent, it's scary, it's unforgettable. It's a whole new spin on the immigrant story and the American dream as an underworld nightmare, as it tells the rise and fall of not only an immigrant who's chosen to engage in criminal activities, but it shows the rise and fall of a man who was maybe too ambitious when he had it all already. And that's what's scary, the cascade of a family having it all. This movie shows you about loyalty, the underworld authority, and the mob code, which is trampled in the feral battle to get to the top of the cocaine mountain. As Tony Montana's character robs and murders his way to his riches and power, and then numbs himself into a fantasy of invulnerability with his own product, you know. And I'm from Brooklyn, so, you know what I mean? Biggie said it the best, you know, you can't get high off your own supply. You're not gonna last long in the streets, you're not gonna last long wherever, you know what I mean? How can you sell something you're on, especially when it comes to this? And, you know, watching this young, you don't understand that, but as you get older, you're like, damn, you know what I mean? We went from a transition where drugs were for certain people. You know, people sold them to certain people, but now you have the music industry who's basically promoting it. You know, these kids are using and talking about it in such a way, it's crazy. But, you know, films like this definitely help to push that moniker. The performances in this film was excellent. Al Pacino, he doesn't make Montana into a sympathetic character, even though you do feel sympathy for him sometimes. That's what I loved about his performance. But he does make this character into somebody we can identify with, you know, in a horrified way. You know, there's times where he reminds you of maybe an uncle or a guy that you know in the street, or maybe an old drug dealer that you grew up seeing. He can be a loyal friend, or he can be somebody very scary to you. You know, loyalty is what he wants, it's what he looks for. If you're loyal to him, he's loyal to you. Man, it has a wonderful gallery of excellent supporting acting, you know, with the likes of Stephen Bauer as his sidekick, Michelle Pfeiffer as his wife in the movie, whose need for drugs leads her from the wrong lover to another wrong lover in him. You got Robert Loggia as a mob boss who isn't quite vicious enough for me in the movie, but he does play a great role. Then you have Mary Elizabeth Antonio, who plays his sister, as, you know, Pacino's kid sister, who wants the right to self-destruct in a matter of her own choosing. You see her progress throughout the film, and I loved it because you tell she's a young girl who wants her freedom, who wants to have fun. And she sees Tony Montana. Eventually she knows, okay, you're making all this money, this and that, you're throwing me, but give me my freedom. And if you know anything about the dynamic, it still happens to this day, but the dynamic before especially was the brothers were basically relied on to keep their sisters in check in many different ways. You know, we had to keep our sisters, basically, we had to keep her in view's eye, you know, to keep her legacy or her, just her, the way other guys viewed her in a very respectful manner. And we had to keep that always, you know. Sometimes, you know, brothers back then were a little too excessive. Like Tony Montana in this movie is very excessive to the point where every time you see her with a man or boyfriend or whatever it is, they go straight into Al Pacino's face, and you see the way his eyes, the way he looks at her, you know. It's almost as if he was obsessed with her. And You know, it's scary. You know what I mean? In the original Scarface, you know, there was that balance where you could tell there was some incest. I'm happy they didn't really do that in this film. But we all know what happened to Manolo for marrying his sister. And, you know, those were things to learn, you know? You know, should you fall in love with your sister, with your friend's sister, out of respect? That's supposed to be your man? Or do you go around them and do it anyways? You know, and we saw what happened to Manolo, man. It was sad. This movie shows you so many different lessons. And most of all, to me, is a movie that understands crime and the personality, for it portrays laziness, ruthlessness, grandiosity, and low self-esteem at points. You know, it shows you about pipe dreams and a chronic inability to be happy in spite of being pretty much abundantly wealthy. You know, once you get to a certain level, are you going to keep going? It's hard when it comes to that. When you get to a certain level, are you just going to walk away? When you're making millions of dollars a day, can you walk away? I don't know. And this movie definitely puts you to think. That's why I love this movie. You know, some reviewers point out that when you remember a movie for more than several years ago, your memory blocks out all the bad things, leaving only the good ones. But this movie really hits you hard. Yeah, you think of the good memories. You think about the times in the movie where he's escalating. Little by little, you see the new suits, you see the cars, you see the house, the wedding, right? But amongst that, you see how he's getting it. So it stays in your head. And even that restaurant scene where he gets drunk and eventually Michelle Pfeiffer leaves him and he accepts it, finally accepts it. He's like, I am the bad guy. You know, it's easy to see how a gangster has turned. And this one, he basically turns it into a classic. Al Pacino delivers one hell of a performance. You know, watching his character's descent from this greedy madness into this entertaining and cinematic genius. I feel like this movie was well casted as well. The storyline definitely had a good flow. It's almost a 3-hour film, and you don't even feel it. You know, this is definitely a overall enjoyable watch. You know, and I hope that if you haven't seen this, man, you've been living under a rock. So definitely go check this out, man. This is a 10 out of 10 for me, always, in my opinion. You let me know in the Discord. Let me know what you thought. If you did watch this already, let me know what you think about this interpretation of Al Pacino in Scarface. And if you liked this video, hit that like button. Hit that notification bell. And if you want more video and content from me, all you got to do is subscribe to the next one. Peace.